From lost tombs to alien artifacts, these mysteries defy logic, and we're diving into the ones no one has cracked. It's the tomb that no one dares to open. The final resting place of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, is buried deep beneath a massive hill near Xi'an. For decades, archaeologists have stared at that mound, knowing full well what lies beneath, and still, no one has cracked it open. Why? Because everything about this place reads like the plot of an Indiana Jones movie, but the dangers may be very real. Historical texts like the records of the Grand Historian describe an underground palace filled with stars painted on the ceiling, a miniature map of China on the floor, and rivers made of flowing mercury. That's right, liquid metal, once believed to represent immortality, coursing through artificial channels to mimic real landscapes. For a long time, many dismissed that part as myth, but modern testing around the tomb mound detected elevated mercury levels in the soil. That part of the legend? Very likely true. The tomb has never been opened, mainly because of fears that doing so could damage what's inside or trigger ancient traps. Some reports suggest the Emperor's engineers designed mechanical defenses that would activate if the burial chamber were disturbed. Spring-loaded arrows crushing stones. Booby traps straight out of a video game. Yet the real mystery isn't just what's in the tomb, it's how much they managed to achieve over 2,000 years ago. The Terracotta Army was only a small part of the complex. Over 8,000 life-sized soldiers have already been uncovered guarding the tomb, and satellite imagery hints at even more underground structures that haven't been touched. And still, the main chamber remains sealed. China's official stance is caution, waiting until technology is advanced enough to explore the tomb without harming it. But part of the public wonders, is there something more? Why all the secrecy? In Homestead, Florida, there's a place that defies logic, the Coral Castle. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 25 tons, stand perfectly balanced in formations that would challenge modern machinery. The twist? This entire structure was built by one man, alone, with no help and no heavy equipment. Edward Leeds Cullinan was just 5 feet tall and barely weighed 100 pounds, yet he somehow moved, carved, and precisely placed over 1,100 tons of coral rock. He worked at night, away from prying eyes, and never let anyone watch him build. When asked how he did it, he'd simply smile and say he understood the secrets of the pyramids. Some say he used magnetism. Others think he may have discovered an unknown technique to move weight without force. Photos show him using a homemade tripod and pulleys, but even those can't explain the precision. The massive stone gate he built, for example, was so perfectly balanced it could be pushed open with one finger. To this day, engineers are still puzzled by how he accomplished it. The tools he left behind don't match the results. The Coral Castle stands not just as a monument to one man's obsession, but as an unanswered riddle carved in stone. And if Ed really did know an ancient secret, he took it to the grave. On a quiet summer morning in Siberia, in a place so remote it barely had a name, the sky lit up like a second sun. A fireball streaked across the sky, followed by a shockwave so powerful it knocked people off their feet 40 miles away. Trees were flattened in every direction, covering an area the size of a large American city. But when scientists arrived years later, they found no crater, no impact site, nothing but scorched earth and twisted forests. It was as if something exploded in midair. This event, known as the Tunguska explosion, remains one of the most powerful natural blasts in recorded history. The leading theory? A comet or asteroid about the size of a building entered Earth's atmosphere and detonated before hitting the ground. But here's the catch: no fragments were ever found. Some have suggested it was a methane gas eruption. Others think it was something more exotic, like a miniature black hole or even an experiment gone wrong. Nikola Tesla's wireless energy project has even been dragged into the mystery by theorists. The truth is, we still don't fully understand what happened that day. The evidence is scattered and confusing. But one thing's clear: something massive exploded above Tunguska. And whatever it was, it left behind one of the most enduring questions in modern science. It's one of the most legendary artifacts in human history, the Ark of the Covenant. Said to have held the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, this golden chest was the centerpiece of biblical power. It brought victory to armies and terror to enemies. And then, it vanished. The last historical mention places it in the First Temple of Jerusalem. After that, it disappears without a trace. Over the centuries, countless stories have surfaced the Ark, hidden beneath the Temple Mount, buried in the desert, or smuggled out of Jerusalem entirely. One of the most persistent claims is that it now rests in a guarded chapel in Ethiopia, watched by a single monk who no one is allowed to approach. What makes this mystery so fascinating is how it blends myth, history, and real-world geopolitics. Governments, explorers, and treasure hunters have all chased it, with, honestly, no verified proof of its existence. Some even think it was never a literal object at all, just a symbolic vessel of power. And yet, the Ark keeps reappearing in pop culture, from Indiana Jones to books and documentaries, because it represents more than lost treasure. It's the idea of hidden knowledge and untouchable power. Whether it's buried under sand, locked in a vault, or just a story passed down for generations, the Ark remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time. In the late 1500s, over 100 English settlers landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what's now North Carolina. They were supposed to build a new life. Instead, they became one of the strangest historical disappearances in the Western world. When a supply ship finally returned to the island, it found nothing. No people, no signs of a struggle, no graves. Just one word carved into a tree Croatoan. That single clue has fueled centuries of speculation. Some think the settlers integrated peacefully with a local tribe. Others believe they tried to sail back and were lost at sea. There's even a theory that they fled inland and built a new settlement that vanished over time. No definitive evidence has ever surfaced. No bones, no buildings, not a single solid trace. And yet, in recent years, scientists have used ground-penetrating radar and archaeological digs to search for answers. A few European artifacts have been found near Croatoan Island, now called Hatteras, but they haven't closed the case. Roanoke remains a ghost story written into American history, a colony that simply disappeared. And one word, carved into wood, is all that's left to explain it. In the early 1800s, a man named Thomas Beale left behind a strange box containing 3 coded pages. According to legend, those pages reveal the location of a massive treasure gold, silver, and jewels buried somewhere in Virginia. Today, that hoard would be worth over $65 million. Only one of the ciphers has ever been cracked, and it doesn't reveal the treasure's location, just a vague description of what's buried. The other 2? Still unsolved. Thousands have tried to decode them using every method imaginable. Some even suspect the unsolved pages might be fake or meaningless distractions. What keeps this mystery alive is how simple it seems on the surface: a box, a few numbers, and a promise of untold riches. But no one has found the treasure. No one's even come close. One of the ciphers supposedly uses a key based on the Declaration of Independence, which worked for the one decoded page. But that same method doesn't help with the rest. It's like the rules of the puzzle change mid-game. And then there's the question, did Beale ever exist at all? Some researchers think the entire story might have been an invention by a bored 19th century writer. But if that's true, it's the greatest literary prank of all time, because the Beale papers continue to inspire code breakers, historians, and treasure hunters nearly 200 years later. In the glittering salons of 18th century Europe, one name stirred rumors wherever it was whispered: the Count of Saint-Germain. He claimed to be hundreds of years old, said he had seen the fall of ancient empires, played the violin like a master, cooked up strange alchemical recipes, and honestly, he never seemed to age. He would drop hints of events that hadn't yet happened, speak fluently in dozens of languages, and always carry gems in his pockets. European nobles found him fascinating. Others found him suspicious. But the most bizarre thing, reports of him kept popping up long after he supposedly died. Over the years, people claimed to have seen him in different parts of the world unchanged in appearance. Some even suggested he faked his death to escape attention. It got to the point where he became the subject of books, secret society theories, and even appearances in pop culture, from Doctor Who to anime. The truth is, no one ever proved who he really was. No birth record, no confirmed burial site, not even a full name. Just a trail of sightings, stories, and whispered legends. Was he just a brilliant con artist with a flair for the theatrical? Or did he stumble on something that let him extend his life beyond what we think is possible? The Count left no answers, just more mystery. If aliens ever left behind a field guide to Earth as they saw it, it might look exactly like the Codex Seraphinianus. This giant, vividly illustrated book is written in a language no one can read, filled with surreal images that feel like they've been ripped from a dream, or honestly, a glitching simulation. There are animals that morph into furniture, cities that seem to grow organically, and machines that do things no human has ever imagined. The writing flows beautifully, even mimicking real calligraphy, but the alphabet is entirely made up and so far, totally undecipherable. Some pages even show diagrams of strange rituals, alien foods, and multi-legged humans interacting with unexplainable objects. It was created in the late 20th century by Italian artist Luigi Serafini, who says the book was meant to feel like how children experience reading, full of symbols they can't yet understand. That's the official explanation. But many people believe there's something deeper hidden in the pages, a code maybe, or an attempt to tap into a shared subconscious. Even without a translation, the codex remains hypnotic. You can't flip through it without wondering what universe it came from or if it's trying to tell us something about our own. It doesn't answer questions, it multiplies them. And in a world full of information, that's a rare kind of magic. In the middle of a quiet field in Georgia once stood a massive granite monument engraved with a message for humanity written in 12 languages. The Georgia Guidestones were tall, cold, and mysterious, their origin credited to a man using a fake name, R.C. Christian. The monument laid out a set of strange commandments for a future world, including controversial population guidelines and messages about harmony with nature. For years, conspiracy theories swirled around the site, from claims of secret societies to predictions of global resets. Then one morning it was gone. An explosion shattered one of the stones. Hours later, the entire structure was torn down for safety. Just like that, America's Stonehenge was erased. No investigation ever fully explained who planted the explosives or why the site was demolished so quickly afterward. The mystery around the Guidestones only deepened after their destruction. Why were they put up in the first place? Who really paid for them? And what exactly were they trying to warn us about? Whatever the truth is, one thing's for sure: the Georgia Guidestones appeared suddenly, stood silently for over 40 years, and left with even fewer answers than they offered. In the vastness of space, galaxies are supposed to be everywhere, sprinkled across the universe like stars on a clear night. But then there's the Buddhist void. It's not just a gap, it's a cosmic canyon. This region of space is so large and so empty, it's often called the Great Nothing. Discovered in the late 20th century, the Buddhist void spans nearly 330 million light-years. That's right, it's a sphere so big that if the Milky Way were inside it, we wouldn't have known other galaxies even existed. And inside this massive volume, almost nothing. A handful of lonely galaxies floating like islands in an ocean of dark silence. The big question is, how did this void form? Standard models of the universe can't fully explain it. Some scientists say it's just an anomaly from early cosmic inflation. Others think multiple voids might have merged. But there's another theory that refuses to die, that something may have cleared this space. Some even suggest advanced civilizations could have done it, though there's zero evidence of that. Whatever the cause, the Buddhist void reminds us that even the universe has places where the rules don't quite add up. It's not just empty, it's too empty. You've seen it everywhere: the massive limestone guardian with a lion's body and a human face, resting silently near the pyramids. But despite being one of the most photographed monuments on Earth, the Great Sphinx of Giza is still hiding some serious secrets. For years, the official story was that it was built around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. That's what's in the textbooks. But the erosion patterns on the Sphinx tell a different story. Some geologists argue that the damage on its body could only be caused by water, and Egypt hasn't seen that kind of rainfall for thousands of years before Khafre was even born. That would mean the Sphinx could be way older than the pyramids themselves. And then there's what's underneath. In the 90s, ground-penetrating radar revealed cavities and tunnels beneath the Sphinx. One of them is directly between the front paws. Egyptian authorities have acknowledged these voids exist, but they've never been fully excavated. Theories range from hidden chambers to a possible hall of records, said to preserve knowledge from an unknown earlier civilization. Even the Sphinx's face doesn't totally match Khafre's statues. It's rounder, wider. Some think it was carved much earlier and later reshaped. Maybe it originally had a different head altogether. Whether it's a monument to a forgotten age or simply the product of an ambitious pharaoh, the Sphinx continues to resist full explanation. And every time a new clue floats to the surface, it only makes the riddle deeper. High in the Bayan Mountains of China, a team of archaeologists in the 1930s claimed to have found something bizarre: dozens of stone discs, each about a foot wide, with a spiral groove carved into the surface like an ancient record. These are now known as the Dropa stones. According to early reports, the grooves weren't just decoration. When examined closely, they were said to contain tiny symbols, microscopic writing, that some claimed told the story of a crash landing. The stones allegedly spoke of a group called the Dropa, who came from the stars and couldn't return home. They made peace with the local people and then vanished from history. Mainstream scientists have always been skeptical. The original expedition has been criticized, and the stones themselves have mostly disappeared from public view. Some believe they never existed. Others claim they were hidden or destroyed to avoid fueling conspiracy theories. But now and then, new photos appear. Some show discs that match the old descriptions. Museums have quietly displayed similar artifacts, though without mentioning any extraterrestrial connection. Whether the Dropa stones were misinterpreted, exaggerated, or completely real, the legend still pulls in anyone curious about ancient contact. If those spirals do contain messages, we just haven't learned how to read them yet. Found in the ruins near modern-day Baghdad, these clay jars didn't look like much at first, just simple ceramic containers. But inside, a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and signs of acidic residue. Put all that together, and what you get might be one of the strangest claims in ancient history, a 2,000-year-old battery. When replicas were made using lemon juice or vinegar, they generated a small electric current, enough to plate metals. Enough to suggest someone in the ancient world may have known more than we thought about electricity. Still, mainstream archaeologists remain cautious. There's no written record explaining their use. No wires, no clear purpose. It's entirely possible these batteries were used for storing sacred scrolls or just held ritual ingredients. But the pieces fit the basic design of a voltaic cell. And that's what makes it so puzzling. If the Baghdad battery really was used to produce electricity, it would rewrite a chapter of history. It would mean someone discovered electrochemistry more than 1,000 years before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite. Until we find definitive evidence, it remains one of those rare artifacts that dangles between genius and coincidence. Either way, it proves the ancients may have had tricks we still don't fully understand. In the frozen wilderness of Siberia, something massive is tearing open the earth. Giant craters some over 100 feet wide have appeared suddenly and violently in the Yamal Peninsula, leaving behind perfectly round, gaping holes. Locals call the region the end of the world, and the look of these craters certainly fits. The first modern reports came in just over a decade ago, and since then, more than a dozen have been found. Scientists say they're likely caused by explosive methane eruptions from melting permafrost. But here's what's weird: they don't look like typical sinkholes. They have clean, cylindrical shapes, and dirt appears to have blown outward, as if something erupted from below. One expedition that ventured into the base of a crater discovered strange patterns of ice and bubbling gas still escaping. The deeper they went, the more unstable the air became. Some explorers reported dizziness, others left quickly. There's no ancient tale or relic here, just Earth doing something we don't fully understand yet. Some speculate these aren't just geological phenomena, but signals that something's changing below the surface, something big. And if these underground gas pockets are building up pressure across the Arctic, we might not have seen the last of these sudden, explosive events. Across ancient cave walls, temple carvings, and even medieval manuscripts, strange humanoid figures appear often with large heads, elongated eyes, and in some cases clearly pregnant bodies. While mainstream scholars label them symbolic or mythological, others point out how often these forms resemble modern depictions of extraterrestrials. Some say these are just stylized representations of fertility, nothing more. But others wonder, could these images be based on something real people saw? Recent AI recreations based on ancient art bring those old figures eerily to life, and they raise even more questions. If they weren't inspired by imagination, what were our ancestors recording? It was Christmas Eve in the 1940s when a family home in West Virginia caught fire. The parents and 4 of their children made it out, but 5 others were never seen again. No remains, no evidence, nothing. Firefighters couldn't explain why no bones were found. The blaze wasn't hot enough to completely destroy them, and search teams combed through the ashes for days. That's when the clues started to pile up and none of them made sense. A ladder the family usually kept outside was missing. A telephone repairman later said the phone line had been cut, not damaged by the fire. A witness claimed to have seen someone throw a strange object at the house before the flames started. Even stranger, Years later, the mother received a photo in the mail of a young man who looked exactly like one of the missing boys, but now much older. The Sauter family spent their entire lives chasing down leads. Private investigators, billboard signs, newspaper ads, they never stopped looking. Official records list the children as dead. But the family was never convinced. And honestly, when you look at the inconsistencies, it's hard to blame them. The Sauter case isn't just an unsolved mystery. It's a real-life story that pulls you in like a cold case thriller with loose ends that still haven't been tied up, and questions that remain even decades later. You don't expect to find a hammer inside a rock formation that's 100 million years old. But that's exactly what happened near London, Texas. A couple discovered a chunk of rock with a wooden handle sticking out. When it was broken open, a fully formed iron hammer head was revealed sealed inside the stone. It looked like a regular 19th century tool. The wooden handle was partly petrified. The head was made of iron so pure it puzzled scientists. But the biggest question wasn't how it was made, it was when. Geologists who examined the rock it was encased in dated the surrounding material to the Cretaceous period. That's dinosaur-era territory. But how could a human-made hammer be inside rock from 100 million years ago? Skeptics argue the rock may have formed around the hammer later, through a natural concretion process, meaning the tool could still be modern, just encased by mineral buildup. Others believe it's a classic case of an out-of-place artifact, evidence that either our dating methods are flawed, or we don't fully understand the timeline of human history. Whatever the truth, the London hammer doesn't fit neatly into the story we've been told. It sits on display today not in a major science museum, but in a small creationist collection waiting for someone to solve the riddle it poses. That's about it. For more useful information, watch other videos,